Raymore City Council meeting. Call roll to confirm a quorum.
Councilmember Abdalgawad.
Here.
Councilmember Boehner.
Here.
Councilmember Hubach.
Present.
Councilmember Kellogg.
Present.
Councilmember Moorhead.
Present.
Councilmember Pifo.
Absent.
Councilmember Stevens.
Present.
Councilmember Westcoat.
Present.
Mayor Kirkhoff.
Present. We do have a quorum. Would everybody please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There are no presentations and awards tonight, no personal appearances, so we'll move on to staff reports.
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the Parks and Recreation Director, John Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Berlin. Good evening. Just a quick reminder that this March 7th is the final deadline for competitive baseball, softball, and recreational baseball and softball registrations. Registration's going very well, I might add, but for all those that are still wanting to get their kids signed up, the deadline is shortly coming. We currently have 47 soccer teams and 12 youth volleyball teams, and they will start this weekend. We just finished up basketball this past weekend. The citywide trail master plan. Staff is ready to take it to the park board. This will be a plan to develop existing trails, looking at new development within the city, and also the opportunity to do some interconnectivity to some of the trail systems that are in cities that border Raymore. So we think this is a great opportunity to add to our great trail system that we currently have. The RFP for the landscape, we anticipate going out for this in the next month, and we do totally anticipate also of being able to plant at least 300 trees in the city of Raymore this summer. So it's going to be a big project for staff. We've decided to do it all ourselves to save a little bit more money. But anyone that would like to volunteer, we would greatly appreciate it. Tentative date for the Arts in the Parks. This is a new event that we will be hosting at the Farmers Market Park. Is June 21st. This is an opportunity for local and area artists to display their talents. It'll be a day of entertainment, art displays, concessions, and just a great opportunity to get out and see some of the great talented people that we have in our community that do produce art. And finally, we have a new event also on March 29th. It's called Touch a Truck. And what this is, it's an event out at Recreation Park. We'll bring everything from fire trucks, concrete mixers, maybe a tank, and other big vehicles out, and we'll allow kids to look at them, or people that like me that are still big kids to sit in them and experience them. So it's a free event, open to the public, and we hope you can all make it. Any questions that you might have?
Questions of staff? Councilmember Westcoat?
What is the age cap for competitive and rec league baseball?
Sir, I think it is 14. I think that is the top age. Generally, it starts dropping off pretty quick after that 12-year-old age group, but I do believe we take youth up to 14 years of age.
Have we ever thought about exploring a league for the older kids? I mean, I realize that, after a certain age, then it gets into, the high school baseball. But we're getting to be such a large community now, and so few of our rec league players and even our competitive players are actually make the team. Would it make sense to explore an upper age bracket for baseball, or if other communities have that, would it be is it something that we should take a look at to say we might be able to field one or two teams to just take the kids to that next level?
What we might possibly to do, and I will definitely look into this to make a short answer, but with the South Metro Sports Association, it's between Peculiar, Raymore, Belton, Pleasant Hill, and even Greenwood. When we don't have enough kids to fill out leagues within our city, we kind of count on these other cities, and we've worked together to form the South Metro Association. And it allows us to do things like this. So by all means, I will definitely bring it up at our next meeting. We meet just about every other month with this association, and I will see if we can maybe try to get something going.
Councilmember Abdelkawad?
I just have a quick question, kind of for clarification. You mentioned the landscaping. That's the project that was in last year's budget, is that right?
Yes,
Okay, I just wanted to be sure.
that is correct.
Councilmember Moorhead?
I'm excited about the Arts in the Parks. That's on the 21st.
Yes, sir.
Is that a single event, or will we be doing that several times over the summer?
We hope to have that spawn kind of with the farmers market, combining that with the Arts in the Parks program. We're going to also explore a concert in the park program. So our attempt is eventually to develop, with the mayor's help, obviously, an arts council in the city of Raymore. And with that in line, I think the sky's the limit as far as arts. We think in Parks and Rec, this is an area that we do not probably focus enough on. We hit sports pretty heavy and the outdoor recreational opportunities, but arts is an area that we think there's a lot of interest, not just in kids, but also in adults. So we want to try to develop that. So
Good.
long story to say yes, sir.
Okay. And then second question, and I may have heard this wrong. You said on baseball signups, did I hear you correctly that the final date is the 7th?
Yes, sir.
Because that was actually last Friday. So is it still going on since today's the 10th?
You know what? You were correct.
But let me ask you this, if a parent put in an application today or tomorrow,
I
would they still be eligible?
do know that we took applications today, so
Okay.
This is a late registration that we will be taking this
We'll
week.
blame it on the snow.
Okay. But,
Other questions for staff?
thank you.
Councilmember Abdelkawad?
I'm sorry, I just remembered one other question. I've had a few people ask about the farmer's market. It's normally in June, but you mentioned starting earlier this year. I just wanted to be sure I'm telling people the right thing. When's the farmer's market starting?
We have a date, and I don't have that with me right now, but I do believe it's either very early in June or the last week in May.
Oh.
I will definitely get back to you on that. It is posted on the city's website. We are taking applications for vendors for the farmer's market at this time. So if anyone has any interest, or if they just want to know when the market starts and what we'll be having this year, please check out the website at raymore.com.
Other questions for staff?
Thank you.
Councilmember, did you have a question? Nope. Okay.
Not for parks.
Okay. Then we'll wait. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. I'll call on the Planning and Zoning or Community Development Director, Jim Ketterat.
Thank you. Going over the upcoming schedule of meetings for the Planning Commission, they will meet a week from tomorrow on March 18th. They have two cases on the agenda. They'll consider the second phase of the High Point at Creekmore subdivision. They're proposing to add 24 lots to the High Point subdivision. And then we'll consider a replat of Lot 3 in the Legends at Raymore. Lot 3 is located on the southeast corner of Mott Drive and 58. They're proposing to add some additional land area to Lot 3. They're trying to get Lot 3 up to be at least 2 acres in size, so they'll be proposing that final plat. We have a third item on the agenda. It is the UDC 19th Amendment regarding stream setbacks. That was initially heard by the Commission on February 18th. They continued the public hearing to March 18th. They do plan on continuing that hearing until their April 15th meeting. So it'll be on the agenda, but we are notifying individuals that have an interest in that topic that we do plan on requesting the Commission to extend that hearing until April 15th. At the April 1st Planning Commission meeting, the Commission will consider the annual review of the growth management plan. When we adopted the growth management plan in 2013, we established an annual review process, and so in April of each year, the commission will review the status of the plan and the work efforts that have gone into meeting some of the goals of the plan. So we'll provide that review on April 1st, and then again at their April 15th meeting is when they'll consider the 19th Amendment to the UDC on stream setbacks. So those are the cases currently scheduled for the commission.
Thank you. Questions of staff? Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I'll call on the Assistant City Manager, Jim Pureborn.
Thank you, sir. We're pleased to report that the Galleria TIF bonds, which the council approved the parameters ordinance for in February, did sell today. It was a successful sale, and the sale met all of the parameters. It met or exceeded all of the parameters that the council had set. There were 3 parameters associated with it. The bond issuance couldn't exceed $16.25 million, and it was at $15.92 million. So that parameter was met. The interest rate, the total combined interest rate on the bonds could not exceed 6.25%, and the final interest rate on the bonds combined was 5.25%. That was about 0.5% or about 1/4 percentage point below what was anticipated last week when they had done kind of an initial run on where the bonds might stand. The final parameter was that the bonds had to sell within 6 months of the council's approval of the bond sale. Now, obviously, that occurred within a month. So all of the parameters were met, successful bond issue. The funds are expected to be available on March 19th.
Thank you. Questions of staff? Councilmember Hubach, did you have a question?
Yes, I finally have one
Okay.
that I had,
You have the
want
floor.
to address to Public Works. Is this the time to do it? It doesn't have anything to do with what Mr.
Well,
Fairborn
if
said.
nobody has any questions of Mr. Fairborn, okay, then ask your question of Public Works.
Okay. I travel down 58 every day, and I've noticed that there's a lot of places where we've got potholes right in the center of it, and especially by the fire department and Mazuma. And I guess my question is, do you wait until someone like me files a complaint or protest, or do you have regular maintenance that you check on that, and so that you see it yourself and you know that it is soon to be fixed? I've saw in the papers where the state has backed out a little bit on fixing some of the part of the sidewalks. And so I'm just wondering if that's, we have to depend upon the state for some of the things, or if it comes under the provisions of the park, but Public Works.
No, maintenance of 58 Highway is under our jurisdiction. We are just entering into pothole season with the weather turning, and also on one of the items you have before you for consideration this evening is some work along 58 Highway, general maintenance work, which includes crack sealing and pothole patching.
And we do still have the tag a pothole feature, right, with the iPhone thing?
Yes, people can report by, if they like, they can snap a picture of a pothole that'll send us the GPS coordinates and tell us exactly where it is. We do look for our potholes, and we do try to catch them as we notice them, but we also do appreciate the public letting us know if they see one, because it is pothole season. The freeze-thaw cycle is what causes potholes, and now that we're into, thankfully, the thaw season, we're going to see some. So if you notice any out there, or anybody, please let us know, and we'll get to it all the sooner. If I might, I just...
Yeah, please.
Oh, yes, sir, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Just to return to the economic development, to the TIF item, I just did want to personally thank Jim Fairborn. Jim's run the point on this item. It was a very complicated bond issue. He's put a lot of work into it, so I appreciate all of his work in what turned out to be a successful bond issuance today.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I would just note that we did place the annual report for calendar year 2013 on the dais tonight. It's got a lot of useful information about things that were accomplished last calendar year, so I would invite you to take a look at it, and we will be posting that online tomorrow as well, so that anybody from the public who's interested can also take a look.
Great.
That's
Excellent.
all I have, sir. Thanks.
Councilmember Kellogg, did you have a question?
I did. It's kind of out of sequence here, but that's the way it is tonight. Ms. Hubach brought up a subject of potholes and such in streets and that, and then also it spurned my memory that some of the complaints or concerns that have come in were potholes next to Orchlands and McDonald's there, and it's been pointed out that is a private street. Am I correct?
It is a private street, yes, sir, although as we investigated the complaint that came in about that, we realized that it's not as clear-cut as it might be. So we're actually working on that very issue. But the road is a private road at the present time, but we need to actually clear up the property records on that.
Yeah, and you know, and I appreciate staff's efforts in this, and you know the tricky road it is, you know, but still, that complaint came from a constituent. And I don't want to say complaint, but concern. It's good for citizens to call them in, you know, and investigate that and bring that up. In the case that it is a private street, what can city do to help facilitate that? Because quite frankly, when it comes to Joe Q Public, you know, they really don't care. You know, it looks like a public street and they just assume that it is, you know, even though it isn't. What can the city as us do to help facilitate those repairs being made?
Well, first of all, I would note we have gone ahead and filled some potholes in there just because we recognize that it is a street that's very heavily traveled by the public. It does have some, that particular private drive does have some underlying base issues that are going to continue to come until some more significant repairs are made. But to answer your question, we do have a property maintenance code which does apply to commercial property as well as to residential property, and we have used that to go ahead and send that a notice out to owners of commercial property indicating that they do need to make a certain repair. It could take a little bit longer for it to get done then than it would be if we just went out and filled something, because there is due process involved. But that's the route that we would take when we do notice a problem on private property.
Thank you. We'll go on to committee reports. Somebody from the Roundabout Welcoming Feature Committee report?
I can give this. We are planning to meet tomorrow night in the executive room over here. It'll be an open meeting at 6 o'clock tomorrow night. Public is welcome to come if they wish. We will be meeting with the staff member from the school district, and I'm sorry, I can't remember her name. Laura Richardson, I'm sorry. And we will be discussing a conceptual idea that we can bring back to the city council. I will give a quick heads up to the rest of the committee, Mr. Westcoat, Ms. Abdelgawad, and Mr. Boehner has been joining us on all these meetings consistently also, that I have done as I said I would with the sketch of a conceptual idea that I have, and I have also contacted through email a company that Mr. Boehner brought to our attention this last meeting, and made contact with them and see if I can get some information from them, and as far as their types of designs and that, and I'll be bringing that forth for tomorrow night's meeting. Mr. Westcoat has something.
And our intention, the committee's intention, is to have a suggestion to bring before the council at the next council meeting.
Okay. Do you want to bring it to a work session or to the council meeting?
Probably a work session would probably be more ideal.
You'll need to work with Mr. Berlin to see what the...
Just let me know whenever you're ready.
Okay. All righty. Other committee report, Economic Development Department. A grand opening ribbon cutting is scheduled for Golden Corral at 11:30 a.m. on Thursday, March 20th. That's been moved from March 13th. The restaurant is located at 1921 West Foxwood Drive in Raymore Galleria Shopping Center. And I understand that the ribbon cutting for Minsky's went well, and they are doing a land office business there, and I hope Golden Corral has the same experience. So. We'll move on to the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to dispose of the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented to include item A, City Council minutes from February 24th, 2014.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Move on to unfinished business. We have the second reading of Bill 2941 by title only.
The second reading of Bill 2941 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with MotionLink, Inc. for the purchase of global positioning system devices and tracking software for Raymore fleet vehicles in a first-year amount not to exceed $17,588.
I'll entertain a motion to dispose of the second reading of Bill 2941.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 2941, the award of contract for the GPS units.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the second reading of Bill 2941. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. That takes care of unfinished business. We'll move on to new business. And let's see, the first item is requires a public hearing. We have the first reading of Bill 2942 by title only.
The first reading of Bill 2942 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the zoning map from A Agricultural District to C3 Regional Commercial District, and amending the zoning map from A Agricultural District to BP Business Park District, land located in Section 19, 20, 29, and 30, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. And as I stated, this requires a public hearing, so I'll go ahead and open the public hearing and ask the applicant to come forward, state the name and address for the record, and present their proposal.
David Otis with Good Otis LLC, representing the Good Ranch. It's good to be here in front of you tonight, Mayor, council members. We are here tonight to rezone what we call Track 10 and Track 9 of the Good Ranch. This is from agricultural to C3 commercial on the top portion of what is immediately just south of North Cass Parkway, and then south of that, a remainder of Track 10 to be all business park.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions from the applicant? Okay. No. Hello,
I think I should say something. I'm Pete Opperman, the land planner and landscape architect for the project. I just wanted to let you know that over there is the top drawing is a color rendering of the actual layout for the C3 area. I know we're not considering that tonight, but just wanted to let you know that that's why we're rezoning it. We have our various pad sites laid out with hotels, banks, restaurants, retail, etc. The bottom portion, which is the purple area, is 113.5 acres. We do not actually have a site plan for that because we don't have an actual corporation or somebody that's come in saying that we want to do this, but we're trying to get them here. And with that, I'll turn it over to staff.
Okay.
More questions?
thank you. Staff report.
Thank you, sir. I'll call on Mr. Cataret.
Thank you. As Mr. Otis and Mr. Opperman indicated, their request this evening is to reclassify the zoning of a property located at the intersection there of the North Cass Parkway and Interstate 49. Specifically, we're asking for 34.5 acres to be rezoned from agricultural to C3, which is our regional commercial district. C3 is our most intensive commercial zoning category that we have in the city. And then rezoning the land south of there, 113 acres from agricultural to business park. Business park does allow a combination of office uses, commercial uses, as well as some very light industrial uses. The growth management plan for the city has incorporated the future land use plan for the entire Good Otis development and Good Ranch development, and it has designated the area that's proposed for commercial zoning as commercial use, as well as the area that's proposed for business park has been designated for business park use, since that land use plan was initially adopted in 1994. The proposed rezoning request before you this evening also would help with the compliance or moving forward with the accomplishment of 3 specific goals in our growth management plan. So the proposed request for the rezoning specifically does advance the goals within our GMP. The land use plan, the zoning amendment this evening does require a public hearing, which was advertised for this evening. We do need to enter into the record the notices that were mailed to all the adjoining landowners, the notice of publication in the Journal, the Unified Development Code, the application, growth management plan, and the staff report submitted to you this evening. There was a Good Neighbor informational meeting held back on February 13th. There were 7 individuals in attendance at that meeting. The applicant was there to explain to the individuals about the proposed rezoning as well as the preliminary plat that's proposed. And staff was there to answer questions from those that were interested. Under staff comments, a few items. Again, the request this evening does follow the memorandum of understanding in that the property has retained its agricultural zoning until the applicant was ready to move forward, as they are this evening. We've indicated that a preliminary plat was filed coincident with the rezoning application. That preliminary plat has gone through the Planning Commission review. However, it does require the rezoning to officially be approved before you officially can consider the preliminary plat. So that item has been held off until your March 24th meeting after, and assuming first reading is approved this evening, after second reading for the rezoning, then we'll consider the preliminary plat. The staff report does provide the use standards for both the C3 and the business park districts. It provides all the uses that are permitted, conditional uses, as well as those uses that are prohibited. I've also included the development standards that any development in either district would have to comply with as far as lot size, setbacks, et cetera. I do want to note that this proposed rezoning area, and specifically the preliminary plat area, it is located within the territorial area of the Public Water Supply District number 10. There is an agreement between the city and the water district wherein the city does have the right to provide water service to non-residential development. We have extended a water main down Dean Avenue, and it actually goes to the south side of North Cass Parkway that will serve, does have the capacity to serve development in the proposed rezoning area. Again, the request this evening does follow the land use plan. The eastern boundary line of the proposed business park area is the future extension of Dean Avenue, heading south all the way to 195th Street. So that's the reason for the curvature of the proposed zoning district. It is following a projected alignment of Dean Avenue to be extended. The Planning Commission did submit findings of fact on the rezoning request for you to consider, and it was at their March 4th meeting where they did vote 8-0 to forward this application to the council with a recommendation of approval. Attached to the staff report is a memorandum from the engineering division. It talks about the provision of public facilities to the property, as well as the minutes for the Planning Commission meeting are attached. So that concludes staff report at this time.
Thank you. Questions of staff? Councilmember Westcoat and then Kellogg.
My question is regarding the 113 and a half acres from A to BP. If everybody in our packet, if you flip to page 67, item number 9 says in 2013 an application was filed but later withdrawn for a conditional use permit to allow warehousing as a permitted use in the business park zone area located on the south side of 195th. That was withdrawn and didn't make it to us. And then on page 68, item 4, where it talks about the use of the business park, It says that it's intended to accommodate office, research and development, and limited service manufacturing and warehousing use. Can you describe for us what limited service manufacturing and warehouse means?
Yes, sir, I can. The UDC specifically has a definition for that. I don't have it in front of me, but the general intent of the business park district is to allow, again, a mixture of uses that would be, it does allow some commercial, does allow office park use, does allow light industrial, so it doesn't allow the processing of materials per se, but it does allow assembly of materials and what people would generally consider to be light industrial. No, actually taking raw materials in to be able to create new products. It's more of a light industrial is more of an assembly of products. Warehousing is allowed as an accessory use. It's not allowed as a principal or primary use. And so the request to allow warehousing on the business park area that's south of 195th Street was a request to allow warehousing as a permitted use, whereas the majority of the building would be used for warehousing purposes. That requires a conditional use permit. Warehousing, again, as an accessory use is allowed automatically in the business park. So that was a specific request for another area of business park that the Good Ranch development has on the south side of 195th Street.
Councilmember Kellogg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First map that I'm going to refer to, Jim, is on page 64, the growth management plan. And I'm trying to compare it with what I believe is on the screen behind us, which is in the e-packet of page 62. Page 62 shows the proposed BP business park following the west side of what is going supposedly the street, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then to the east of it shows green A, which is agricultural, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Then you flip to page 60, I believe, 64, yes, referring to the growth management plan. Similarly, that street in there, it kind of snakes back around to the east and then down to the south instead of coming back to 49. You see where I'm at?
Yes.
Okay, the growth management plan shows the high-density residential, am I correct? Running through basically the middle of that area?
Yes, it does.
Okay, that encompasses, it overtakes what the proposed is for the business park. My question is, in regards to the growth management plan, if that takes over this, what does it do to the remaining that is to the east of that street? What's our future there? How does this affect the growth management? Does that high density housing still exist, or, you know, because I'm confused because of the proposed map that's there only shows agriculture. Can you explain that to us, please?
Yes, sir, yes. And a couple of things to go over there. Going back to the map on page 62, again shows the existing zoning of the entire area is agricultural. Then it shows the proposed zoning to business park and C3. So those two tracts are proposed to change from agricultural. The land area that remains is agricultural. Under the agreement with the Good Ranch is to remain agricultural until they come forward with the request to propose rezoning. When they do come in and propose rezoning, then we look at the land use plan map that's on page 64. So when we go to that particular map on page 64, that's the current approved land use plan for the city. What it shows, as you indicated, it does show the business park adjacent to the interstate. It does show Dean Avenue heading south of North Cass Parkway all the way down to 195th Street. The brown colored area that is on both the east side of Dean Avenue extended as well as the south side of the business park is proposed as multifamily area. When the request for the rezoning came in, and actually subsequent to the land use plan map that you see on page 64 of your e-packet, Dean Avenue has had a little bit further design, preliminary design work done, and they have looked at reconfiguring the alignment of Dean Avenue. So when you turn to the map that's on page 71 of your packet, it does show a better alignment of Dean Avenue, again heading south of the North Cass Parkway. And then with the proposed rezoning, they've actually refined that alignment even further, and the Dean Avenue alignment has shifted further to the west. So it actually has decreased, based upon the approved land use plan, it's decreased the amount of area that was to be for business park. So what was, it increased the amount of land area for multifamily. So what was discussed with the applicant in an effort to balance out the amount of land area that would be used for business park and for multifamily, we actually had them look at reclassifying the zoning of what's identified as tract 11 on page 71, which was multifamily. By changing that from multifamily to business park, it then offsets the additional part of multifamily that was gained by shifting Dean Avenue closer to the interstate. So what we tried to do, the rezoning request does not exactly follow the approved land use plan. That we know, but what it does do is, to us, it follows the intent of the land use plan, and the end acreage amount of business park and multifamily remains the same after the rezoning as it did back in 1994. So that's why you see a little bit of difference between the different maps, is that we're actually, with the rezoning, making a modification to the approved land use plan, which is certainly within the ability of the council and the planning commission to do. I hope that explains, hopefully that answers your question.
Other questions of staff? Councilmember Hubaugh?
Well, this area, as I understand it, is a PUD, and isn't that one of the advantages of a PUD, is that you can change the road a little bit, and you can make some other adjustments as long as you stay within the overall parameters of what you plan to do, and that's just basically what they're doing?
It came in as, back in 1994, it came in as a master planned community, but it actually did not obtain the status of a planned unit development. So it was never zoned as planned unit development, and it doesn't strictly follow the terms of our planned unit development zoning. But it did come in under the spirit of a planned development, so they had a master plan for the entire parcel, and that's what we're trying to follow. But as we get further with details, especially with road alignment, the road alignment is much more clearly defined now than it was in 1994, after you start doing a little bit of work, topographic work, and make sure the roadway alignment is where it should be. And that's what's occurred more recently versus what we had even a couple of years ago. So that's where we're trying to refine the boundary lines between business park and the commercial and the multifamily area. But again, with the spirit of what we're trying to do here, we thought it would be best to try to balance out the amount of land area, not end up with an increase of multifamily zoning simply because we're doing this rezoning for business parks. So that's what we're trying to do with the request this evening in obtaining the balance.
Other questions of staff? Councilmember Stevens?
During the Good Neighbor meeting, we had people here from Whitetail, and they were kind of concerned about all the traffic coming into 195th Street. I'm assuming at some point that road improvements will be made in the area when a lot of this is developed.
Yeah, absolutely. As the Good Ranch develops from Cass Parkway heading south, and Dean Avenue does have to be extended, of course, to serve the development. The ultimate plan is for Dean Avenue to connect with 195th Street on the east side of the underpass that goes where 195th Street goes underneath the interstate. There would be a realignment there where 195th Street would no longer, in essence, be the through street. It would be 195th Street turning north and turning into Dean Avenue, and then there would be a turn off of there to go under the interstate to get over to Peculiar Drive. So the details of that haven't been worked out, but there would be a realignment for improvements in that area, and certainly any development to the Good Ranch south of 195th Street would have to improve 195th Street. So there would be improvements that the Whitetail Run neighborhood is interested in.
Any other questions of staff? Okay, I'll open the floor to public comment. Please identify yourself for the record and keep your comments to under 5 minutes. Seeing nobody come forward, I'll close the public hearing, and I'll entertain a motion to dispose of the first reading of Bill 2942.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 2942, the rezoning of North Cass Plaza at the Good Ranch.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the first reading of Bill 2942. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. And we'll move on to the reading of Resolution 1415.
The reading of Resolution 1415, a resolution of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the extension of the preliminary plat for Arbor Hill subdivision located in the northwest quarter of Section 27, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, Cass County, Raymore, Missouri.
And staff report?
Thank you, sir. I'll call Mr. Carteret.
Thank you. Back in May of 2013, at a city council work session, council did ask that each time a preliminary plat is brought forward for renewal, that council be advised of the development status regarding the stream buffer ordinance. Bain Stout Development LLC, which is represented by John Bain and Adam Stout, they're the current owners of the undeveloped land area within the Arbor Hill subdivision. Arbor Hill is located on the south side of Hubock Hill Road between School Road and Jay Highway. The preliminary plat for Arbor Hill contains 219 single-family lots, and I note the property is currently exempt from the stream buffer requirements. The preliminary plat was approved back in February of 2006. There have been extensions granted to the preliminary plat in 2007, 2008, 2010, and 2012. And I note that no final plat application has been filed to date. I do know that the property owners are actively trying to sell the property. I need to note that the request for the extension of this final plat was filed on February 10th, which was before the expiration date of the preliminary plat. That is important to note because in accordance with our Unified Development Code, the developer may request an extension to a preliminary plat provided they do file the request for the extension before the actual expiration date of the preliminary plat, which this applicant has done. And so we're actually considering the request this evening, even though the expiration date has already passed. The importance of that is the fact that most developers you would find come in early before the preliminary plat expires, because if for some reason the council didn't grant the extension, they still have a period of time before the actual expiration date. And during that time period, they can come in and file a final plat, which automatically extends the preliminary plat. In this case, for this particular request, since the council is considering the request for extension after the expiration date, the developer no longer has that option if council denies the request for the extension. So it's just a risk that the applicant takes. I remind the applicants several months in advance of when the expiration date is. I give them the opportunity to file as soon as they want, or in some cases they file a little bit later. But again, this request tonight is before you. It is legal for you to proceed with acting on the request, but I just note that if you approve the request, of course, it does extend it for 1 year. If you deny the request, there is no other option to the applicant. They have to come in and file a new preliminary plat. Regarding, again, the Arbor Hill subdivision, there are a couple of stream segments that do cross through the property, and I've provided an illustration in your staff report that shows you the impact of the stream buffers on the proposed subdivision. I do want to note for this particular subdivision, even though it was approved back in 2007, they did provide a good stormwater plan for the project. They did take into account existing streams that do cross through the subdivision. They did provide some protection for certain features. There is a Order 3 stream that does cross through the northeast quarter of the subdivision, and they have reserved that area as open space. There's still a few impacts of a few lots, but generally this subdivision and some of the improvements they planned on making does do a good job of meeting the requirements of our stream buffer ordinance. So based upon that information, staff, and the fact that we have only a couple of lots that are impacted with the would be impacted if the street buffer is implemented. We do recommend the approval of a one-year extension to the request. And if this is approved, the new expiration date would be February 13 of 2015. So that concludes staff report.
Any questions of staff? Councilmember Westcott?
Is a representative from this organization, are they here tonight?
I do not believe they are here tonight. I do know that one of the owners is out of the country. The second owner was not able to be here this evening. And I did make it very clear to them that they needed to have representation. So they certainly knew that was a requirement.
Other questions of staff? Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to dispose of reading of Resolution 1415.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve Resolution 1415, Arbor Hills, a preliminary plat extension.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 1415. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Westcott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I obviously won't be supporting this tonight. You know, they're asking us to basically approve a plat that has already expired, and they didn't even have the common courtesy to come before us to ask us in person, which to me just shows their dedication to the project, in my opinion.
Councilmember Kellogg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last regular meeting, when I got home, I had a text message on my phone asking how we could extend a preliminary plat that had already been expired. And I instantly wrote an email to Mr. Berlin asking if what we did was legal, right, and normal. And I got a response back from Mr. Berlin and Mr. Cataret saying the exact explanation that Mr. Cataret just gave. You know, I had some concerns about that as far as transparency, and those have been addressed as far as my concern. And but I understand what Mr. Westcoat is expressing on my right, but I don't see, and the legal opinion that came back also is that what we did was right and normal, and we've done this in the past. I have asked staff to take steps or to investigate steps to where it doesn't show that doesn't have the appearance of improprieties going on, to solidify and close those dates. So I do have some concerns there. I do not have any concerns with this particular preliminary plat extension. My question was going to be, but it's explained right here in section 1, where does the extension end? And it ends on February 13th. It don't end on a year from today. So that rests that assure for me. I will be supporting this. My wish and my hopes would be that developers would come before staff and before council before that extension or before the expiration date expires, you know, but if they've got the ability to, that's the rules, and I understand that. I don't like it, but, you know, if they're not doing anything wrong, they're not doing anything wrong. They're just doing something that I don't particularly care for. But me as a council member, the only thing I can do is advocate for policy from the council to eliminate that appearance of impropriety, because I don't want the council to have the ability of somebody outside the citizen saying that we're doing something underhandedly or back doors to this, you know. But by the same tokens, even though those questions have been answered to my satisfaction, now it throws it back to the developer and staff. I want that to have transparency and the ability to not show impropriety on that side. So that's my spiel on what I have to say there, and I will end my comments there. Thank you.
Councilmember Abdelgawad,
Can I ask a quick question of staff?
please.
Real quick. I'm just curious, you mentioned that the owners are looking to sell this property. Would it be beneficial for them, if they're not wishing to to develop the property anymore, would it be helpful to them selling the property to already have this preliminary plat in place? Does that make any difference in the sale of the property? I'm just curious.
It does make a difference, and it certainly adds value to the land area to have an approved preliminary plat. So anybody purchasing the property knows that they could proceed at least under that plan. They may have a different plan in mind, and will have to come through and get that approved. But they would have something that they know has already been approved with the preliminary plat, so it does add value to the property. I do want to note, I mean, the property has been for sale for quite some time. They continue to be active in trying to market it, but it has been for sale for some time.
Councilmember Moorhead, Abdelgawad, Westcoat, in that order.
Since Ms. Abdelgawad had the mic, I'm fine letting her continue.
Please.
Thank you. I was just gonna say, based on that, I mean, because this plat really seems pretty close to being in line with the stream buffer, and of course, as we've talked about before, you know, they would hopefully make the adjustments necessary. If this developer isn't really that interested in developing the property, I would say let's do what we can to support them in moving it along to someone else who's looking to really develop in Raymore.
Councilmember Moorhead.
One of the facts that stood out to me was that the initial preliminary plat was put through in 2006. So we're looking at 8 years. This is I believe, the 5th extension that's come before us. The concern that I have is, I mean, while I want to be supportive of all landowners in the use of their land, at some point, as Mr. Cataret pointed out, this property's been up for sale for a while. So, you know, politely put, without being too glib, if I'm going to try to sell my car, I wash my own car and I make it look nice. I'm not concerned about the issue of the date of application here. What I'm concerned about is the 8 years of applications, and I'm concerned that you know, they purchased this property and had the opportunity to submit a preliminary plat long before the economy went south, and so this isn't an excuse of somebody being hit by a land development. So I just wish to express those concerns.
Councilmember Westcoat.
Thank you. You know, my issue with this is that, you know, here we have a landowner who's been trying to sell it for years, and you know, they're so attentive to their business that the application expires, and now they're asking us to grant an extension, and they're not here to even ask us for the extension. So, I mean, I love to be supportive of a business, and I'm a big business supporter. However, when the business is apparently run the way it is, it's very difficult for me to be supportive at all. It's sort of like an attorney who has an appointment before the judge and then doesn't bother to show up before the judge. You know, how long does that attorney stay in business? Well, not very long. So to just grant extension after extension in hopes that an absentee business owner is going to sell it, I mean, to me, you know what, let it revert back, let them sell the land, and then the next person can file the plat and do it the right way, and hopefully they're more attentive to business than the current owner.
Councilmember Huber.
While we all have been talking about what we think of the project, and the two men that are involved in it are not here, is there some way that we can table it until we can hear from them? Because I think we want to help development, but we have some concerns. So I would like to see us table it or bring it up again in a couple more weeks or months, maybe after the election. Would that be possible?
Councilmember Westcoat.
You know, I'm not in support of tabling this. You know, they've had it for, what was it, 6 years, 8 years, however long this preliminary plat has been going on. You know, staff made it very clear to them what needed to be done and the date, and yet they're not here. So, you know, I'm past the point of saying, hey, you know what, we're going to work around your schedule, when in fact, you know, they need to be working around the Raymore schedule. We've given them plenty opportunity, and yet, again, they're not here this evening.
Councilmember Hubach?
I guess I would say what would happen if we went ahead, what would be the result? And if we decide to turn them down, what would be the result on that? I mean, I'd like to, I go by that area quite often because it's out in my ward and I know what the property's like. And it's got a lot of streams running through it, but I see that they've mentioned that. My concern with it is the density. I think maybe 219 homes might be a tad high, given the lay of the land, as I said. But then when you see it grown up in trees and you see it with weeds, it's hard to tell what the underlying terrain is like. So I don't know. I have mixed feelings. I like to see it go forward because it has stayed idle too long. But I'm not really sure that we know what the developers have in mind.
Any other discussion? Councilmember Moorhead?
Councilmember Hubach posed a question and then shifted topics. If I could go back and actually ask staff to answer that question. Obviously, if we approve this tonight, then they would receive roughly an 11-month extension or to February 13th. But could you help the council understand, if we do not approve this tonight, what is the effect?
The effect is that the preliminary plat is null and void, and then whether the current property owners or a future property owner comes forward, the zoning stays in place, but they would have to submit a new preliminary plat that would comply with all the requirements the city has in place today, or at the time they make the application.
Councilmember Westcoat?
So forcing them to go back, forcing a new owner to go back to preliminary plat could actually address the density issues that Councilmember Hubach has concerns with.
That is correct. This particular subdivision is adjacent to a large lot subdivision of Southwood Estates, and after this subdivision was approved, the city did enact a subdivision adjacency requirement. So lots that are adjacent to large lots do have to be somewhat compatible to the neighboring property. Currently, the preliminary plat does not meet that requirement. But so yes, if a new preliminary plat is submitted, the density could be lower.
Councilmember Kellogg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In regards to the growth management plan, if this was to be refused or denied, in regards to the growth management plan, what does the growth management plan say as far as density for a new preliminary plat? Is it the same as what it would have been or what it is now, or would it increase, decrease? What's the difference?
If their preliminary plat is expired, the land use plan remains single-family residential for the property. The zoning remains the same for the property, which is R1. Density, even though the subdivision adjacency does kick in, it would require some of the lots to be bigger in Arbor Hill. However, it's difficult to answer the density question because a lot of the lots in Arbor Hill today are larger than what they actually could have been when the preliminary plat was submitted in 2007, 2006, and actually are larger than what the R1 requirements are today. So if we take the preliminary plat that was submitted and approved and overlay the adjacency standard, then the density goes down. But if they start from scratch, even meeting adjacency, while density may go down, there's also the possibility that it could go up, again, because of the lot sizes at R1. So the fact that, I mean, the preliminary plat has a stamp for 219 lots, but it is unclear at this time to know exactly how many lots we would have under a new preliminary plat. Just know that under a new preliminary plat, they would have to comply with the stream buffer setbacks that we have in place today, as well as adjacency and any other requirements that have changed since they initially adopted. So density is just, it's a difficult question to answer.
Councilmember Hubach?
Does the council realize that they will not be on city water? Remember, we went, those of us, Mr. Mayor, I think you and I may have been the only two, remember Mr. Kellogg was, that was here at the time when they first brought it up. They will be, what is it, Water District number 6, because they had trouble trying to get it. Water District number 6 didn't want anything built there at all, and so there was some difficulty with it. And we finally got that resolved, and that was one of the reasons that it took so long, was because the Water District didn't want to work with the city and the developer on this. And they would, as I remember correctly, that water tower is right next to the city's water tower, the one that we call Hubach. And they were going to have to bring the line down on the north side of the street. And the people that had the evergreens and all refused to let the evergreens be cut down so that they could run a water line. Well, nature has taken care of that, and the trees have died, so now there shouldn't be any reason why they couldn't come down there. But even so, it would not be Raymore City Water that would be supplying it, as I understand. Now, has that changed in any way, Mr. Carteret?
It hasn't changed, you're correct.
Is it number 6? Is that the Water District?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Other discussion?
I don't know
Councilmember
whether that
Westcott?
makes a difference in your thinking or not, but I just wanted to
Councilmember
know.
Westcott?
Well, you know, as I see this, there are several good reasons to let this measure fail, and only a couple of weak reasons to support it. And largely because the applicant isn't here to even defend themselves, because they didn't view it as important enough. Again, I don't see the reason to approve this and give them another 11 months when, you know, it wasn't important enough for them to even be here.
Any final comments? We have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 1415. All in favor? 1, 2, 3. In opposition? 1, 2, 3, 4. Measure fails if I read the counts correctly. We'll move on to Resolution 1416.
The reading of Resolution 1416, a resolution of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the extension of the preliminary plan for Alexander Creek subdivision located in the northeast quarter of Section 13, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, Cass County, Raymore, Missouri.
Thank you. Staff report?
Thank you, sir. I'll call Mr. Carteret.
Thank you. This is another request to extend a preliminary plan. In this case, just for terminology, it's, for Alexander Creek, it's called a preliminary plan versus a plat, only because Alexander Creek is a PUD, it's a planned unit development, so they refer to preliminary plan instead of preliminary plat. But they act as the same. This particular property, it's owned by Gaha Alexander Creek LLC, who's represented by Weston Doyle, who's the current owner of the undeveloped land within Alexander Creek subdivision. Again, Alexander Creek located off of Ward Road, north of 58 Highway. The undeveloped land and the preliminary plat for that land contains 54 single-family lots just north of the area that's currently developed. And there's actually 16 two-family lots that would be back in the northwest quarter of the Alexander Creek subdivision. Again, this property is currently exempt from stream buffer. The preliminary plan for this subdivision was initially approved back in June of 2003, but there was an amendment on February 26th of 2007, so that's the current preliminary plan that they are under. Extensions were granted in 2008, 2010, and 2012. And the most recent final plat application was for the second and third phase, which was back in 2005. There are currently 38 homes in the subdivision, and there's 3 additional homes under construction. There are a total of 76 lots still remaining to be built within Alexander Creek, so there will be some time before any of the undeveloped land would move forward for development. This is another application wherein the request for the extension was filed just before the expiration date, so that's why the actual consideration of the request for the extension this evening is after the expiration date of the preliminary plat, but again, under our code, that is certainly legal. I included in the report the illustration that identifies the stream that does cross through the Alexander Creek subdivision. You'll see this stream is actually covered by a floodplain area. And I note that even though the preliminary plat currently shows some lots within the stream buffer and floodplain area, our code does not allow any lot to be located within the floodplain. So when it comes time for final plat, they would either have to amend the preliminary plat to take all the lots out of the floodplain area, or they perhaps they're thinking of proceeding with a 404 permit from the Army Corps of Engineers to do some fill within the floodplain or adjust the floodplain boundary line. That is unclear at this point in time, but certainly looking at the illustration, you'll note that some of the lots are impacted by floodplain and stream buffer. This is again, a developing subdivision. The applicant has proceeded with development over the years. So based upon that, we do recommend approval of a 1-year extension. That if that recommendation is filed, the new expiration date would be February 26th of 2015. That concludes staff report.
Questions of staff? Councilmember Westcott?
Is there a representative from this organization here? I just want to thank you for being here.
So I'm thankful that I am here too. And actually, I am not.
Is Mike on?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
My name's Randy Salee. My company is Salee Homes Incorporated, and I actually have this property under contract to close this week. So technically, and I wondered if this would be an issue with the council and the mayor tonight, but I am going to be the owner of this property by Friday of this week. We are the ones who prompted the extension, and I guess I'm here to answer any questions if I can. But to be honest with you, we're purchasing the existing lots and the vacant ground, and I can say in all likelihood that we will probably be back before you in 11 to 12 months, because I just cannot see us building all 60 lots within that time frame. So, but I am here to answer any questions and ask for your approval of an extension too.
Thank you. Questions for Councilmember Moorhead?
Sir, do you do any development of Pleasant Hill?
I'm sorry?
Have you done any, or do you do any development in Pleasant Hill?
Yes, we've done quite a bit.
Where at?
We have an area called Hunter's Ridge that we have developed. We actually bought the property, we bought 20 lots probably about 10 years ago, and then we bought an additional 50 acres, and we put in 2 phases in that subdivision. There's another area called the Enclaves with acreage lots in Pleasant Hill, and then we do a little bit of work. We did some work in Willow Creek in Pleasant Hill also. So we've done 3 developments in Pleasant Hill.
Thanks.
Councilmember Abdel Gawad?
I don't know if you are current on what's going on in Raymore that much, but one of the things we're really working hard on is the stream buffer ordinance and respecting the environment and that thing. So my big question for you, Mr. Carteret, asked about the floodplain. Do you intend to fill in and redirect the floodplain, or will you be respectful of where the stream's running through that property now?
Well, I'll be very respectful of the streamline that's currently there, but quite honestly, when I first looked at this property, I told myself that would be an ideal area for a small lake, oversized pond or lake. I thought it would increase the value of the property. I thought it would be good for the existing homeowners that were in there now. This is a villa community. I think we are currently in discussions with Glenn Jones, who has done a nice project in Raintree, the Raintree Villa project. He has a nice lake in his area with a walking trail around it, so that was an idea. Again, I haven't taken the time or had the time to talk to the engineering company or my land planner to see about doing that, but we will be respectful of the stream in that area there.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Is there any further questions of staff? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to dispose of Resolution 1416.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Resolution 1416, Alexander Creek Preliminary Plan Extension.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve Resolution 1416. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Moorhead?
Mr. Mayor, I must unfortunately disclose a conflict of interest with the applicant, so I'll be recusing myself.
Okay. Any other discussion? Councilmember Westcott?
No discussion. I just again want to thank the applicant and business owner for being here tonight. Thank you.
Councilmember Stevens?
You guys have some questions about Mr. Salee and his building background. I've been through several of his homes. They're very nice. I'd be proud to own one myself.
Other? In that case, did you have a, please?
Kind of following up from my question, my big concern with this, as I said, is this stream buffer ordinance and just being respectful of being the headwaters that run down eventually into the lakes. And so I think it's our responsibility in Raymore to take heed of that. And this plat just has many, many properties that are in that area. So I'm really hesitant to do that, especially knowing you're a new owner and you may look at replanting it anyway. I don't know, I guess my question would be what's the benefit of doing this if he's gonna rework it anyway? And it doesn't really, how much changing will he have to do? You said it was grandfathered, so technically no changing. So there are many, many lots on this map that wouldn't be approved under our current ordinance.
One comment, if I may, there is the ability to do minor modifications to a preliminary plat. So sometimes you'll see when a final plat comes in, they've made some slight adjustments to the plat, and that is certainly allowed within code. If they make major changes to street layouts and the orientation of streets, et cetera, then it does require a new preliminary plat. So while there's some flexibility when you come in with a final plat, it is limited. So yeah, it is hard to know at this time because as I indicated, as you did, there are a number of lots that are impacted by this, not only the stream buffer, but the floodplain.
Go ahead.
Another quick question. So if you were to look into putting a lake on this property, as he talked about, is that something that would require a new plat, a new preliminary plat?
It actually probably would, because I think it would impact it to a degree that would rise to the level of a new preliminary plat coming forward, if that's in fact what would occur. Because I think that would change the street layout and lot orientations.
So just, in your opinion, or maybe in your opinion, what would be the benefit of us approving this preliminary plat if it's may or may not be what you really want to work with?
If you do, come up to the microphone, please.
Well, again, I guess I will emphasize that I haven't really had the time or taken the time to study what I would do with the future phases. I really don't have any intentions right now of doing anything in the immediate future. I think all this does it gives us the option. And I don't want to sit here in front of the council and promise that we're going to build a lake or do something like that. I don't want that to be misinterpreted because I'm just telling you what my first thought was. But I think extending the preliminary plat I don't believe it hurts the existing homeowners, nor do I think it helps the existing homeowners. I think it just gives us an opportunity to revisit what was already planned and approved in the very beginning. My opinion.
In that case, there's a motion and a second to approve the resolution 1416. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Thank you. In opposition? And abstention. Okay, so 6-4, none against, and 1 abstain. All righty. May we have a reading of Resolution 1417 by title only?
The reading of Resolution 1417, a resolution of the Raymore City Council adopting a street preservation program for fiscal year 2014 and a multi-year plan.
Thank you. Staff report?
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the Public Works Director, Mike Kraus.
Thank you, Mr. Berlin. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, what you have before you this evening is a 5-year pavement management plan, the first year of which will represent this year's project. The recommendations before you are based on the city's pavement management system, which we put into place in 2011. We outline the various segments and the maintenance activities for those. The first year we have field verified. The remaining 4 years have been generated by the software, and we field verify as we get closer to construction because things and situations do change in the field. So we recommend approval of the program. Also, there is a alphabetical listing of the 5-year program. I know council tends to get a lot of calls, and we've generated that. We will also be putting this on the website. I would also call your attention to the bar graph that is attached to our memo that shows the overall network health, and it's tracking very well where we had originally anticipated it. We seem to be moving forward in a good direction, and we'll continue to do so.
Thank you, and I'll speak for myself, but I have a feeling I also speak for the council members. I love that alphabetical listing of streets. Questions of staff? Councilmember Westcoat?
One of the concerns that we always hear about, and I'm not sure which process it is, if it's the microsurfacing or if it's the milling and the overlay, which is the one that creates the rough driving surface?
That's typically that's the initial phases of the chip and seal that we did on like Lucy Webb and Prairie Lane last year, and we are recommending we do that on a road segment on Southwind. The microsurfacing has a minor rough surface, but it doesn't rise to the level of the initial roughness that you get with a chip seal.
Is there an advantage to doing that chip seal? I mean, is it just a cost factor, or I mean, what's the advantage of doing that when it actually does create that rough surface?
It adds a little bit of structure with the size of the aggregate that's used on the chip seal, and we only use that and recommend that on the very low volume roads.
Right.
Other questions of staff? Councilmember Moorhead?
Mr. Krass, this is not directly on this. I'm looking at the 14 through 18 years for street preservation. Johnston Drive, especially down near Rainbow Circle, is to the point to where it's a roller coaster and it's in severe disrepair, but I'm not noticing anything listed on for the next 4 years, anything more than routine maintenance. And I know you can't directly answer this maybe tonight. If you could just get back with us through Mr. Berlin. When is that due? And when roads get that bad that fast, how easy is it to incorporate that into and kind of make it more of an emergency fix? Is that something is routine under our road management plan?
The work that is necessary on Johnson Drive, the area you're talking about, is beyond the scope of the pavement management plan. Pavement management plan looks at the network level and looks at preserving the roads where they are. We are looking at that particular area. My staff is in the process of generating an estimate for what it's going to take from just north of Rainbow Circle, where the median ends there, all the way around over to Silvertop. But to really fix that is going to take similar scope to what we did on Johnson Parkway a few years ago, where we took the road completely out, subcut it, and so as we are in CIP season, for budget preparation for next year, my staff's working up an estimate, and we're going to incorporate that into our recommendation for projects in the CIP.
Councilmember Abdelgawad?
Thank you. Okay, my question, and I think you've probably tried to explain this to me before, but I want to be sure that when the questions come, because I know they will, I know what to tell people. I noticed Oak Drive, which I've had many complaints about, is on the streets rated as poor, but is not supposed to get anything until 2018. How am I supposed to explain that to people?
what we are trying to do on those is find funding for those. The work that is needed on those streets is beyond the cost effectiveness that the pavement management system is based on. Those roads need either to have the road surface completely removed, subgrade preparations done, and those type of things. So that's kind of an estimate of where things are. We are trying to program those streets in as funds allow, but right now the work that's required there is beyond what's incorporated into the pavement management system.
Just another quick follow-up question. I know when we were working on the budget, that was one of the questions that came up before we were trying to figure out what to do with our extra money, was do we have enough money for our streets? Because that's probably the number one complaint that we get from people is the streets. And sometimes it's a quick fix and sometimes it's not. But from my spot, it's hard to tell people, yeah, we budgeted money for a community center that we're not sure what we're gonna build because we were assured that the streets are taken care of. But now I have to say, wait, we don't have enough money for your street. Just any ideas of how I can share with people about that?
Eric?
Yes, well, just to note, in this last year, there were a number of other streets that were also in this category of poor. And we, because we had substantial fund balance in the general fund, used $900,000 to greatly reduce the streets that were in that category. The hope would be that we might be able to do things like that again as funds allow. But as Mike's indicated, in general, the street preservation is intended to preserve streets, not reconstruct them. We do have one street on here that's shown in that category, but for the most part, that's the problem that we have, is that the streets that are in that poor category require so much in terms of funds that they almost need to be a separate capital project for which we need to identify funds. With regard to a community center, one of the things that you will have to consider when it comes time, if you decide to issue a no tax increase general obligation bond, is whether to use it for something like a community center, or you would have the option of saying, no, we're gonna spend it more on basic infrastructure. We did spend money in the 2007 general obligation bond issue on general infrastructure, both capacity improvements and major maintenance, and that will be a decision that you also will have before you in the next year.
Councilmember Westcott?
Just to follow up on Councilmember Moorhead's question, since staff is evaluating that section of Johnston Drive now, will we expect to see a recommendation or at least a briefing on that during this construction season?
What we're looking, not this construction season, what you would see it as a project, we're looking at recommending to Mr. Berlinda to be incorporated into the 5-year capital improvement plan, which gets adopted or would be before you August.
Right, as part of the budget process.
Other questions to staff? I'll entertain a motion to dispose of Resolution 1417.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Resolution 1417, the approval of 2014 through 2018 Street Preservation Program.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 1417. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Stevens?
I just wanted to make a comment about the micropave stuff. I'm sure that it preserves the road, but it also preserves every bump in the road. Just not really exactly sure I care for it.
Other discussion? Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Motion carries unanimously. And we'll move to the first reading of Bill 2943 by title only.
The first reading of Bill 2943 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving and authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract extension agreement with Town and Country Disposal to provide single hauler solid waste recycling and yard waste pickup services and special pickups.
Thank you. Staff report?
Yes, sir, thank you. At your work session a week ago, you did discuss a proposed extension of the city's contract with Town and Country Disposal for residential solid waste disposal. You did direct staff to place this item on your agenda for formal consideration. So the bill before you would extend the city's current contract with Town and Country Disposal through 2017 under the terms that are outlined in the contract.
Any questions of staff? Councilmember Abdel-Gawad?
I had a question come up this week. I was curious if, and you may or may not know, is Town and Country planning to keep Compost Connection as a contractor for their yard waste?
I do not know. I don't have any reason to think that they wouldn't, but that is a decision that they make. Compost Connection is a subcontractor to Town and Country.
Do you know if we could find that out before second reading?
I can ask them.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kellogg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't understand what germane topic that would have anything to do with it. That's a subcontractor that Town and Country has. Nothing that we have anything to do with. That's total business decision that between two business entities and has nothing to do with this contract. My question would be, is Town and Country, is there a representative from Town and Country here tonight to answer questions if we have questions like that?
No, sir, and I beg you not to blame them. But since he was there at the work session last week, we did not feel that we needed to invite him tonight. But if you are aggrieved that Town and Country's not here tonight, please blame
Is it
staff and
possible
not
he's
them,
out
and
of
I can-
country also?
No, not that I'm aware of, sir.
I'm just making a
if you would
point. I'm
like-
just making a point, and I'm being facetious, but, you know, by this, the litmus test that was thrown down earlier tonight, that, you know, I'm just saying.
Other questions of staff? Do you have a question of staff?
I guess so. I also got a call from Compost Connection, and I referred him to Mr. Berlin. Did they contact you?
They contacted Mayor Kirkhoff and asked that question, and I did respond directly to the proprietor of Compost Connection, and I indicated that they should make that inquiry of Town and Country and not the city.
That was all I needed to know. Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to dispose of the first reading of Bill 2943.
Mr. Mayor, move that we approve Bill 2943, the extension of contract with Town and Country Disposal.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the first reading of Bill 2943. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Westcott?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd like to start off by saying that, you know, with the earlier issue, it wasn't the litmus test that was established. You know, I have never seen that developer ever come before us and speak with us and answer questions, whereas the representative from Town and Country actually came to one of our work sessions and sat at our table and had a very fruitful and positive discussion from which we could make the decision and move forward. So, you know, I don't see there's any relevance between the two. I'd also like to just go on to say that, you know, with this contract, the cost to the resident is actually going down. So as opposed to, you know, somebody trying to do this on their own, you know, before we went to a single source provider, you know, I was paying over $17 a month. And I think with this contract, they're even dropping it further. So now it's around $12.90 if the number were.
In next year, in 2015, it would go from $12.31 to $11.91.
$11.91. So, you know, here we have a good example of what government is supposed to do, providing service to, you know, our constituents at a better cost and value.
Councilmember Stevens and then Kellogg?
I think that was the expense of some of the rest of his, mine's borne out.
Councilmember Kellogg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to reiterate what I spoke of last Monday night when Mr. Pasek was here for the work session, is that there is no council policy for how many extensions the council can give to any particular contract, regardless if it's this contract or other contracts. I think it's prudent that the council has a policy that only a certain amount of extensions can be given out until the whole contract goes out for bid for all contractors, whether that be 2 extensions, 3 extensions, but there should be, in my opinion, a limit on how many extensions a particular contractor is allowed before the contract is completely opened up for all competitors. Thank you.
Other discussion? There's a motion and a second to approve the first reading of Bill 2943. All in favor? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Motion carries unanimously. And that takes care of new business. We'll move to public comments. If you'd like to make a comment, please identify yourself for the record. Keep your comments to under 5 minutes. And I think we have 3 students here tonight. Are you required to come and speak before the council? They haven't made that requirement yet. Okay. Seeing nobody coming forward, we'll go ahead and close the public comments. And I'll move to mayor council communication using my random generated list of council member names. And the first tonight is Councilmember Kellogg.
Wow. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a lot of comments. The comments that I have is what a great change of weather we've had. 74 degrees is what I read today when I was driving into City Council. I've been down and out ill for about the last week, and finally yesterday I was able to get out and enjoy the weather, and I went to Memorial Park and threw some horseshoes around for about 45 minutes by myself. What I did find out is that those horseshoe pins are just a little bit off to the right, about a foot. If you can tell Mr. Kennedy to have those moved a little bit to the left, my average will go up.
We'll take care of that right away.
Yeah, and also remind him to not predict the weather again. So anyway, other than that, I hope everybody is enjoying the weather, and just be safe out there. Daylight savings time was last night, I believe, Saturday night. Okay, so anyway, jump ahead. Thanks a lot.
Councilmember Stevens.
No comments tonight.
Councilmember Pifo is absent, so he doesn't get to talk tonight. Councilmember Westcoat.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank and congratulate the staff on another successful bond issuance. I don't think the average person realizes how important that is to the overall health and mission and vision and progressive growth for our city. So thank you for all your hard work. It is appreciated, and congratulations. And then I just want to remind everybody about the ribbon cutting on March 20th. Get to welcome another business into our community.
Councilmember Hubach.
I'd like to see the council have a work session on our streets. Some of our streets are not that old and they are just falling apart, and we need to discuss what it means to be a poor street. A city like Raymore, we should not have any street anywhere that is classified as poor. And I would like to have some discussion in a work session on our streets.
Councilmember Abdel-Gawad.
Thank you. I just want to share real quick. I was reading the newspaper this week and saw an article that said that one of our local businesses, Affordable Elegance Catering, has been selected to win an award as the 2014 winner of Not Best of Weddings, not as in K-N-O-T, not as in they're not the best. Anyway, I thought we ought to be pretty proud of Affordable Elegance Catering as being recognized as one of the top wedding catering professionals in the Kansas City area. So just a shout out, congrats to Dee Dee and Greg Stokes for their excellence in their local business. And of course, tonight, before I came here, we had a Relay for Life kickoff meeting over at the community bank across the parking lot. Relay for Life is June 13th this year, and we would love to see anyone and everyone there. Go ahead and go online and get signed up for that at Relay for Life, RAPEC.
Thank you. Councilmember Boehner.
I'd just like to encourage all the residents of Raymore to support the Arts in the Park program on the 21st at the Farmers Market, June 21st that is. And then also I'm highly encouraged to see the Parks Department start to take on this role dealing with culture and arts in the city of Raymore. I think that's a key ingredient to growth in the city and the growth of a community.
Thank you. And Councilmember Moorhead.
A couple things. I would also like to mirror a compliment to Mr. Fearborn regarding all of his efforts, and that's appreciated. I would like to say, since it is warm, I'm hoping, although I guess I'll get the blame if we get cursed with the snow, I'd like to extend to Mr. Kress, knock on wood, extend to Mr. Kress that I received a lot of compliments this year with some of the different strategies that were employed, and compliment he and the staff on all the snow removal. That was appreciated. I also wish to express some excitement about the arts in the parks as well, to see our parks expand into those areas. I do have to say that I thoroughly enjoyed the cheeseburger pizza over at Minsky's, and did not get a chance to properly welcome them, but I've enjoyed their pizza a couple times already. Although I'm up for a challenge and a change, and with Golden Corral, I'll get a whole different fare there. So I'm looking forward to that. So I'm excited to see Golden Corral come in on the 20th. So that's all.
Okay, thank you. And all the good things were taken tonight, so I have nothing to share, so. But I will entertain a motion to go into executive session for litigation matters as authorized by 610-021, subparagraph 1, and personnel matters 610.021-3.
I will make that motion, but I do want to go on record as saying it was Councilmember Moorhead that said snow. So if it snows, everybody call him and complain. Mr. Mayor, I move that we go into executive session to discuss litigation matters as authorized by 610.021 subsection 1, and personnel matters as authorized by 610.021 subsection 3.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go into executive session. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Abdalgawad,
Yes.
Councilmember Boehner,
Yes.
Councilmember Hubach,
Yes.
Councilmember Kellogg,
Yes.
Councilmember Moorhead,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens,
Yes?
Councilmember Westcoat.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll adjourn to executive session. We'll return here just to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.